DJ Nation fam, what is up? What is happening? It's Ryan Williams back again for yet another DFS top low owned plays, also known as the TFA Contrarian, the DFS DJ Nation Contrarian, whatever floats your boat. I'm going to try and get to this in under 10 minutes this week. Before I get into that, you can follow me on Twitter, RyanAlexander_W. You can also subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of this content that I'm bringing to you guys week in and week out to find you 10 low-owned plays for your tournament lineups this weekend on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Let's start it off here. Quarterback once again. We got Matthew Stafford on the slate here, 5,900 on DraftKings, 7,200, I believe, on FanDuel, which makes him the quarterback 12 there in a favorable matchup here going against New Orleans, right? So New Orleans is tied for second with 8 passing touchdowns allowed, 5th most fantasy points and FanDuel points to the position that they're allowing, 7th on DraftKings. So I really do like this play from a FanDuel perspective when you're taking into account that he's the 12th highest priced quarterback in this matchup. It doesn't make sense. Aaron Rodgers just lit this team up. You love that Matthew Stafford has a narrow distribution of targets. He's got back-to-back multi-touchdown games, which we like to see. He hasn't reached the 300-yard threshold yet this season, but I think this week he can do that. And this week he pays off dividends with playing on the 3rd highest over-under on the slate. I really like Matthew Stafford this week. Running backs, let's talk about Josh Jacobs to start. I got a couple running backs to get to, and it's a fun one, right? So Josh Jacobs comes in, and he gets a 52.5 total here. He's getting 20 touches in pretty much every game that he's seeing the field. John Gruden he'll be damned if he doesn't get this guy the ball. And we saw it last week. It just was not working for them against the Patriots, and he was still carrying the load for them. Now, I think he comes in at about 8,000 on FanDuel. This is definitely a play for FanDuel because the matchup really isn't that favorable going against the Bills here. But you definitely like the red zone usage. He's 5th in red zone rushing attempts. So I really like getting some exposure to Josh Jacobs to get leverage on some of those other high-priced guys in large field tourneys, right? Because the ownership is just not going to be there. And you definitely want to play the likes of Kamara and Zeke and Dalvin Cook. But if you really are looking to kind of differentiate and attack maybe the passing options on those teams and not so much the running back options, Josh Jacobs makes a ton of sense. Let's go to Jonathan Taylor going against the Bears. The Bears have allowed a rushing touchdown in every game this season, 25th in yards per carry, 25th in rushing points allowed per game. Jonathan Taylor, another guy who the Colts just want to feed him the rock, right? And so I'm going back to the well here with Jonathan Taylor, who is 4th in red zone rushing attempts, so just higher than Josh Jacobs there in a game that doesn't have that high over-under that we're looking for necessarily to target. But if they can control this game, so to speak, and they get a favorable game script going, Jonathan Taylor can definitely pay off. Austin Eckler, let's talk about him. Now, this is DraftKings specific play because of the passing usage you're seeing. And you know, shout out to Anthony Lynn, who's made Herbert the starter for the foreseeable future as Tyrod gets healthy. But Eckler has been showing us that he can, you know, be an RB1 with Herbert back there. And so you love that. Josh Kelly is still going to be in the mix. He's the running guy, but you saw last week when they needed to come back in a game, when they needed points, Eckler seeing the field, Josh Kelly is not seeing the field. He's going to play in games when they can definitely control how it goes here in Tampa Bay. Tom Brady on the other side, if they're able to put up points, you gotta like that Eckler can see the field there. Tampa Bay giving up the 3rd most targets and receptions, have been stout on the run. So Josh Kelly, I don't think will have a successful day tomorrow. So you're definitely looking at Eckler to kind of pile up points there, and love him on DraftKings to get some leverage off of some of these other guys. Now, Mike Davis, he comes in at about 5,700 on DraftKings. Just way too cheap for what we're getting here. This isn't Christian McCaffrey or anything like that, but you got to love, he's got back-to-back games with 8 catches. Definitely love to see that. 76% of the snaps and 21 touches in week 3. So he's going to be on the field. They're going to utilize him. They really don't have anybody else that they feel comfortable in getting the rock to. And when they get into the red zone, he's got the 2nd number of red zone targets on the team. So, you know, it's a decent enough receiving spot. Arizona allowing the 5th most yards to opposing running backs, receiving yards, that is, to opposing running backs. So I love playing Mike Davis this week in the flex on DraftKings. You're not probably going to sacrifice getting a high-touch guy in Zeke or Dalvin Cook or Kamara, who can definitely skyrocket you up with the pass-catching upside with no Michael Thomas, too. But if you're looking in the flex and you're looking at some of these mid-tier wide receivers, just put in Mike Davis, who gives you a safe enough floor. And if he scores, you really would be loving that. Rounding out the running backs here, we got Ronald Jones. Again, another DraftKings play, I think, specifically for me, but I do like him a little bit on FanDuel. 4,700, though, on DraftKings. It's just way too cheap. There's no Leonard Fournette. There's no Chris Godwin. LaShawn McCoy is basically non-existent in this offense. He should get the pass-catching work there from what Leonard Fournette is leaving behind. And so you're thinking about that, plus mixed in with the fact that Godwin isn't going to be out there. So you got Mike Evans, Scotty Miller's on the injury report. So Justin Watson, next man up there. Gronk, and I'll touch on Gronk later, actually, but OJ Howard there. Ronald Jones, we saw week 2, he got that touchdown first, and then Fournette ended up going big. But then last week, he kind of took back over the role. He had more touches than Fournette did last week. It seems to be that Tom Brady will look for him in games. And at 4,700, I think he makes a perfect contrarian play where you don't have to, you know, guess about if it's going to be Scotty Miller if he's healthy or Justin Watson here. Just take the guy who has the backfield. All right, wide receivers. I got a couple for you before I round it out with tight end. Let's start off with Robbie Anderson. Now, DJ Moore is a guy I wrote up in the Building Blocks article that I do for the TFA this week. And I just love this matchup for whoever the wide receiver 1 is. Now, if you know who that is, shout out to you, because Robbie Anderson or DJ Moore are basically fighting 1A, 1B there. But he's 5,400 on DraftKings, 5,800 on FanDuel. I just have to get some leverage on him because I have so much DJ Moore that I'm building around. So he's going to probably see a third of the ownership that DJ Moore has. He's got 7 red zone targets to start the year, and the volume just should be there. There's outside of Curtis Samuel, Robbie Anderson, Mike Davis, and DJ Moore, tight ends are pretty much non-existent there. They only have 10 total targets between the position, and then only 5 other targets to the rest of the wide receiving corps outside of the guys that I mentioned. So I like Robbie Anderson here. It's a plus matchup. Go see what I wrote up for DJ Moore in the DFS Building Blocks that's released, and all the same things apply for Robbie Anderson. AJ Green, one of my favorite plays to build around this week. I think that people are looking to play Joe Burrow and they see what Tyler Boyd is doing with him. But first 2 weeks here, we saw AJ Green garner a target share of 20%. And I mean, you look at the matchup and this guy, how unlucky do you have to be to go up against these corners to start the year? Darius Slay, Denzel Ward, Casey Hayward. These have just been not positive matchups for him. And now he gets to go against possibly rookie CJ Henderson, who's allowed a touchdown in each of the past 2 games, or Trey Herndon. He's got 28 targets on the season. He's 5,500 on DraftKings, 5,700 on FanDuel, popping off with air yards. Boyd has a good matchup here too, but AJ Green is just, if he's on the field, he's going to see targets. And at this price, his ownership just does not make sense. To get some leverage there, and you're not really paying that high price tag for him, definitely love to get some AJ Green. Nelson Aguilar, he's really my leverage off of Hunter Renfrow. We talked about on the DFS pod this week. Go to the YouTube channel. You can find our week 4 breakdown. He's running in the slot, and basically the slot is the position that we want to attack on defense when we're talking about this Bills team. The slot corner there is not somebody that we're afraid of, and they're giving up a lot of points to the slot. I wrote it up with Hunter Renfrow this week. They allowed Jamison Crowder, Isaiah Ford, had 7 for 76. Gesicki, Kupp, and Jamison Crowder all got 100 yards and a score in this same type of matchup there. So you're thinking about it, and Aguilar is going to be on the outside, I think, because Ruggs and Bryan Edwards are both banged up, and start Renfrow on the, in the slot, but he's not playing there 100% of the time. They're rotating Aguilar in there. So if Aguilar can get some shots from that position, I definitely love that. And he's running the 3rd highest number of routes on the team. And last week he ran the same amount of routes as Darren Waller. So as a leverage play, he's only 3,400, I believe, on DraftKings. You love that. And let's round it off here. Gronk is the guy at tight end who I'm looking to get leverage on the field with. I think I'm pretty much jamming in TJ Hawkinson wherever I can go to pair up with Matthew Stafford, but no Chris Godwin, as I said, no Leonard Fournette. You like what you saw last week with Gronk, right? 7 targets, so it seems to be back in the mix when he's pretty much been dead in the water. He's got the same number of deep targets as OJ Howard has. They just haven't connected in deep targets by Pro Football Focus. That's 20+ yards down the field. So I just think that this is a nice spot for Gronk to get going when there's players missing here in this offense. His lone red zone target came last week. So you're hoping that when they get into the red zone, if it's not Ronald Jones or it's not Mike Evans, maybe Gronk could break one there. And at his price tag, he really, if he gets you a touchdown and the rest of the tight end position really doesn't do much for you, he's salary relief to kind of get some of the other high price guys in. All right, so that wasn't 10 minutes there, but I tried to do it as close as I can. But those are my 10 top low owned plays there. The TFA DFS Contrary 10. Appreciate everybody who's been watching these videos. Subscribe to the channel, like the videos, comment, reach out to me on Twitter. If you have any qualms or anything related to this, positive or negative, I'm always open to feedback. So really appreciate you guys. Make sure you're catching us next week for the DFS Week 4 breakdown. Myself, Kevin Steele, and Maddie Dickinson. And I'll also see you next week, week 5, for the next version of the top low on plays. But until then, hope to see you guys on the leaderboards. Peace.